Hello, everybody. Welcome. Welcome. Thanks for joining us today. Today, we are joined by Morgan Ehrenzeller. He is 26 years old. He's currently living in Florida, and he is a millionaire. Today, we're going to talk about how he became a millionaire in his 20s. And with that, without further ado, welcome, Morgan, to the show. How are you?
Hey Jake, thanks for having me. I'm good. How about yourself?
Best day ever. It's Saturday. It's super nice out. I'm excited to talk today.
Likewise. Yeah, it's pretty hot down here.
So let's jump right in. Um, so how did you? So you're in Florida right now. We've done deals together. We're friends, so we know each other pretty well. So I have a pretty good idea of your story, but tell everybody that's listening, how did you get started in real estate, and how long have you been doing it?
Yeah, great question. So essentially how I really got started was my dad was a contractor, so was my grandfather. So ever since I was a child, I had the pleasure of holding the flashlight, so to say, since about 9 years old. So that gave me a very good foundational education aspect from knowing the buildings from the inside out, but not necessarily from the outside in, from the business aspect. So I grew up and I was exposed obviously to the buildings and everything like that on the construction side, A to Z. But what really pushed me across the leap into actually buy real estate rather than being a service person for in real estate was I was talking to a guy and I ran into a little chunk of money at a younger age at the time, and I didn't know what to do with it. And I noticed and realized every rich and wealthy person owned real estate. I didn't know why or how or what they did with it, but I quickly came to the realization every rich or wealthy person was in real estate, and I needed to figure that out.
Yeah. That there's something like what 90% of millionaires own real estate or something like that.
Yeah, there's some there 90% of millionaires were created through real estate.
So you mentioned that your dad did construction, so you saw the logistics of putting a house together or remodeling a house. You're familiar with a lot of the construction end of things, and you also highlighted how you came into a chunk of money. So I think when people are first getting started in real estate, one of the things they don't have is money. So you said that when you were younger, you had a chunk of money. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so when I was about 14 years old, I created a software company. I hired virtual assistants out to code out platforms. I taught myself some coding during it. Obviously, you should have to know some parts of your business. But really, I outsourced that. It was kind of a saying. I have 7 doctorates, 6 PhDs or whatever, but it's not me. It's the people who are working for me who have that, so to say. But yeah, I nonetheless, at 14, I hired a bunch of virtual assistants, code out some software for me, sold that at a young age, made a decent amount of money for my age at the time, and then used that money, plowed that into cryptocurrency. Bitcoin at the time was about $30, $30 to $50.
So
And my
how long ago was this? So you were making money from your software company when you were a teenager, um, and and then you invested in Bitcoin. So what's the timelines, just so everyone knows?
this was about 2011, 2012.
Okay, so back before Bitcoin is anything like it is today.
Correct. No one knew what it was at this point or anything about it.
Okay,
So I had my software company and all the financial processors I was using, like PayPal. You had to be 18. You had to be an adult to take money. So me, about 70, 80% of my payments were coming through PayPal. They limited my account because I wasn't technically an adult. So that chopped me off at the chest on my revenues.
wow.
So
I just want to pause there, Morgan, because that's such a really good learning experience where, because you're underage, you couldn't use some of the transaction tools that you could if you were 18.
mhm.
And a lot of people might say like, "Oh, I just can't do it now." But what you did is you looked for an alternative currency, and it ended up being beneficial. I just
Correct.
want I don't mean to keep interrupting you. I just wanted to highlight that. So, you had to pivot when you're a teenager and find something new, and it ended up being the best thing you probably could have done.
Exactly. Yep, that's what happened. So I had to pivot, turn the currency to Bitcoin. That's how I discovered Bitcoin and all the other cryptocurrencies, and started taking payments that way. But yeah, that's pretty much how I came into a little chunk of money at a younger age compared to most people in their teenage years.
That's awesome. And so like when you say a software company in your teenage years, a lot of people are going to say that or hear that and say like, okay, well, I don't know how to code. I don't know how to do anything. Um, how did that come about? How did you get involved in that software? Like, was it something where you had to be a super genius to get started, or did you kind of just fall into it? Can you talk a little bit about that?
It's more of just being resourceful. That's really all it is. If you're a resourceful person, you can do anything. So, like my point, a lot of people say that they have masters, doctorates, bachelors. Not necessarily me. It's the people I know. So I leverage a lot of people. Us. We have about 3 or 4 levers: media, human, capital, and technology. If you can leverage these 4 levers in any business, you can scale quite drastically.
Awesome. Okay, so we leave the teenage years where you can't even use real banking tools, so you have to use cryptocurrency. And because you use cryptocurrency, you have this holding of Bitcoin. So what do you do with the Bitcoin? So you said that you sold the Bitcoin or some of it and started buying real estate because you saw that everybody that was rich had real estate. Where did you start investing, and what did that look like for you? I know we're both from Pennsylvania. Um, I want to try not to talk about things I already know and just hear directly from you. So, like, a lot of people are afraid to invest outside of the area. Some people feel like they need to get started close to them. I believe you got started closer to you, and now you invest everywhere. So, can you bring us along that journey coming out of high school, becoming an adult, all that?
Yeah, great question. So I bought my first property. It was a duplex when I was 17 years old with some of that money. It was a seller finance.
Right. Okay.
Yep, seller finance. I bought it. Bought it 5K down. I bought it from my grandmother and then made monthly payments to her until it was paid off. So I bought that at 17. From there, I went to college. I started college at 17, went to a community college for 2 years. And then after that, I really didn't do nothing with the real estate at that point because I was taking student loans and I didn't want to have that extra income affect the loans because I wanted to continue furthering my education because I thought that was the right move at the time. In hindsight, maybe not, maybe it was. But anyway, did that, went to community college for 2 years, and I transferred to Bloomsburg and I was enrolled there, got my bachelor's in marketing and then a minor in business management. And then after I graduated college in 2020, that's when I really started to buckle down in real estate.
So you went to college for business. You went to Bloomsburg University, and what? So do you use any of the college that do you use your degree basically?
Very minimal, maybe less than 5% of what I've learned in college, honestly.
And you were working a tech job, right? I understand now you're fully real estate. That's how you eat. But when you got out of Bloomsburg, what happened after that?
Yeah, so my last semester at Bloomsburg, COVID just started popping off early 2020. I went to actually had a little hunk of money left over still from my cryptocurrency. A lot of my friends were buying, new cars, stupid shit like that. I knew that wasn't the right move, and I knew that they would regret that in the future. So I was like, all right, I have this duplex. In the meantime, though, in that college time frame, I was educating myself as much as I could in my free time about real estate, almost making it to be obsessive in a way. So like during that time frame, I uncovered the Burr method, all of that, and it really started clicking. And I'm like, okay, I can make a lot of money in this industry if I'm strategic enough.
So you started obsessing over real estate, and you realized that that was your path. Like, what was there anything that, like, anybody you met or anything that made it really click that stands out to you, or was it like an accumulative buildup of knowledge through research and through life experience where you decided to go into real estate, or was it somebody that, like, light bulb, you know?
No, I didn't have that mentor holding my hand. So the way it was all self research, tripping on my knees, scraping my elbows, and getting back up, tripping on my knees, scraping my elbows, eating shit, getting back up again, and so on.
Yeah, and so a lot of people talk about, like, the mentorship route and how before you get started, you should get a mentor and all this stuff. I completely disagree with that. Like your story, like my story, I think you just get started, and then you start to meet people that know more than you, and maybe they become your mentor, they help you. But I think a lot of people, when they think of the word mentor, they, like, envision like a counsel of somebody to consult with, but really it's more of like a friend that you get advice from, you know? Um, and yeah, you just got into it, you started working, you said, "I'm gonna start trying this," and what made you okay with the risk? Because there is some risk, right, getting into real estate. Like, how did you feel about that?
I looked at the risk unnecessarily, like, okay, what's my money going to do sitting here in the bank? It's going to do absolutely nothing, or I'm going to piss it away on, a sports car or something stupid. So I didn't really look at the risk. What do I have to lose? I have a real estate asset that I can rent out that's going to make me money for the rest of my life. So I don't know if it's, because I grew up in construction, that I see a lot of people get caught up when that hurdle. They get caught up on the whole construction phase, but that didn't really look like a risk to me. And then when I mentioned my last semester of college, I went to a foreclosure auction, and I was the only one that bid on the house. Got it for $10,000 in Bloomsburg. There's some like fees and stuff. All said and done, is like 12,500. And at that price point, I mean, people in my family, people I personally know, are going out and buying cars for 3, 4, 5 times that. So I'm like, how the hell can I lose on this? Really, I don't see a way to lose at all. It's better A, than me going and pissing away the money. B, I don't trust the stock market. I don't trust any of that other stuff where I don't have control. So that was really, what it was. And then I put about $18,000 between contractors, sweat equity into the house. And then after that, it was worth 126 back at that time frame. And then it clicked to me, I was 22, 23 years old at that point, picked up 100K roughly, give or take 90, 100K in equity in 3-4 weeks. That's when it clicked really. And that's was like, no other job is going to do that for me. I don't come from money. I don't come from a wealthy family. I'm not from Harvard. I'm not from Princeton. I'm not from Yale. I'm not from investment banking. I'm just a normal kid from small hometown and with a hard work ethic. So that's when it clicked.
You come from nothing. Your father didn't give you a bunch of money to get started in real estate.
Nope.
And worked hard. And then while you were in college, you saw your friends going out and buying things they didn't really need, buying liabilities instead of assets. And you said, no, not for me. And you started buying real estate instead. And you already were familiar with seller finance because that was your first deal. But then the Bloomsburg deal is where you gained a ton of equity. And that's when that was like a light bulb, right? Like, okay, I can make a ton of money from providing value in this field. Yeah, that's huge. So you're a millionaire today, and you're 26 years old. So a lot of people think to become a millionaire, to become wealthy, it takes years of working, and you sack money away in stocks or a 401k. You slowly invest. You don't take out debt if you're following Dave Ramsey, all that type of stuff. So how did you become a millionaire? Like, what is it like to become a millionaire in your 20s? How hard do you have to work? What does that look like? You are a millionaire in your 20s. A lot of people never reach that. And the people that do, usually it's in their 50s or 60s or, even 70s.
Honestly, what it is, it's what you're willing to give up. It's honestly not all that special. I became a millionaire probably in about 2 years, 2, 3 years tops in real estate. Now, granted, I worked my ass off to get there, and I sacrificed everything. When I do it, I mean that. Like, my lunches every day was beans, hot dogs, and rice. That's what I ate for majority of like 2 years because it was extremely cheap because all my money was going into real estate. Um, Everything I had was going into real estate. At one point, the house I lived in when I was first starting, we had a boiler. My girlfriend and I, we had a boiler in there, and it broke for a little bit, and I didn't have the money to fix it for hot water for us. So we were showering at the Planet Fitness for a little bit, and as well as that, I was house hacking, and I was working 16 hours a day. My friends would go on vacations. They would go to Coachella, all the concerts. I didn't do that. I didn't buy the next pair of Jordans. I didn't spend money on absolutely nothing except real estate and continued for that to compound and compound and compound. Most people aren't willing to make that sacrifice. But I made that sacrifice and I made it to an extreme level, which I think is, in hindsight, on how I got to that status so quickly, was because I was willing to give everything until I broke through.
What do you say to the people that say that you should enjoy your 20s, that you're only 20 once and you should go and vacation and have fun and explore? What do you say to that advice?
I say the only people who are giving that advice are broke people and haven't accomplished much in their life.
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
Like it's always the broke one who's got something to say.
Yeah, to be successful, it requires a ton of work. You have to work harder, literally, than everybody else, right? That's the reason you're becoming successful.
Just look at who you take advice from. That's all I'm saying. Are they actually saying it, or are they sitting on the sidelines?
Yeah. So you were eating beans or hot dogs and beans to save every dime you possibly could.
And rice. Yes.
And rice. Yeah. Yeah. Mine was chicken, beans, and rice for the first few years. And
Yeah.
so, like, can you dial into that? Like, I think a lot of people, they're in their job or they're going through college right now, and they want to get out. They want a better life. They want to have a better lifestyle, but they don't want to go through the pain to do it, right? They don't want to make the sacrifices that you just said. They don't want to, not go out this weekend and stay inside and work. They don't want to eat rice and beans for a little while until they can save up a nest egg. They don't want to do that stuff. So, like, what would your advice be to somebody that is listening to this? Maybe they're 20 years old, maybe they're in college right now. Like, what would your advice be? Should they listen to this other advice? Should they hustle? What should they?
Everyone's going to give you a different opinion. Personally, I think, my lifestyle isn't for everybody by all means, and what I do, it's not for everybody. It's just not cut out for everybody. And I understand that. I would say for across the board as a whole, find the person who's living the ideal life and the ideal lifestyle that you want to portray and you want your life to look like in the future, and ask them for advice and follow their footsteps. There's nothing wrong with, a 9 to 5 comfortably making $250,000 a year if that's what you want that's what you want out of your life. Me personally, that's not what I want out of my life. So I think you should take advice from the people who are actively living the life you want and what they're doing, and follow and mimic that.
Yeah, and another question I have, just because you come from, like, your parents didn't have millions of dollars and they didn't have a lifestyle where you could look at it and be like, oh, I want that. I don't want to just be mediocre. And you still chose like this thing. Do you think it's learned, or do you think it's genetic?
I think you can shift that mindset personally. It takes a lot of work and to unlock deeper level of thinking. But generally, I think if you have the right resources and the right building blocks to go off of, you can shift that mindset to think, else or outside the box, so to say. I don't think it's genetics, because if it's genetics, I would be living, paycheck to paycheck. My dad was a carpenter. We didn't live in, a huge house or anything like that. So if it's genetics, I'm genetically programmed to be that, but I'm not.
Yes. I don't think it's genetics. I think, you could change the way you think actively. You have to actively work on it and, put different thoughts in your head. You have to reprogram your brain almost.
That, and the one key thing that really, I would say, one in my early 20s that started taking me more vertical is you're the average of the 5 people you surround yourself with. And that is so 100% true. I made that shift from hanging with my old hometown friends to now my friends were bankers, accountants, investment banking, private equity, realtors, brokers, wholesalers, all of that. I switched the group that I was hanging out with, attorneys, all of that. I switched the group, and 3 to 6 months later, the results started showing for it.
Yep. And I think so a lot of this advice that we're talking about right now is really centered around people in their 20s and people just getting started. But we're definitely going to talk about advice that can go for, anybody that's looking to buy their first property, whether you're 50, 60, whatever, because, Morgan became a millionaire in a couple years. So if you're 45 years old, you can become a millionaire by 47. It is possible. Morgan just did it. I know plenty of people that have done it, and he wasn't born with money. He wasn't programmed to think about money the way that he thinks about it today. He taught himself that through hard work, through sacrifice. So now that you're a millionaire, Morgan, has your lifestyle changed? What do you do now?
It's really not that different, believe it or not. Like people think, oh, he's got $1 million. Like, no, it's really not that different. It's kind of a lifestyle. Not If you think $1 million, like it's not $1 million in the bank. Like as you develop financial literacy, you start to realize. I mean, I could buy any car I wanted, anything I dreamed of at this point. But as you develop financial literacy, it's like it's stupid to go buy those things. It really is. So once you develop that, it's hard to go back.
Yeah, last time I think Morgan drove me to the airport a couple months ago, and we drove in his Cobalt, and it had a cracked windshield. So Morgan definitely does not spend his money on vehicles, and he's in it for the long run. So Morgan, what are you doing now? Like, what is your portfolio look like now? What are your goals now, and what do you got going on? Like, how are you moving and shaking in the real estate world right now?
Yeah, so I got a bunch of stuff with some partners. I have probably 15 partners spread across the board where we have stuff, me and a partner, me and 2 partners. But now I'm on the broader picture, so to say. So now I'm in the world of private equity, where I have a few partners. They're great partners. And I believe entrepreneurs, I generally can tell where they're at in their journey. When you first start out as an entrepreneur, you want to do everything yourself so you can have 100% of everything. As you grow and scale, you start to realize, as I mentioned earlier, the levers that you can leverage, capital, human, technology, media. If you're strategic enough about all of this, you can grow something much, much bigger on a bigger scale. So I have, probably 80, 85 properties between me and, 1, 2 other partners, or between myself, stuff like that. But on the bigger scale, it's like, would you rather have 100% of a grape or 25% of a watermelon? So that's more or less what I'm on to now. And then also in the same point, when you're doing this all by yourself, you're competing against teams, right? You're competing against, essentially teams like me and my team in the funds that I'm a part of. There's no way you're outperforming and outworking and outdoing all of our resources combined together, 5 of us, or 4 or 5 of us. You put together 4 or 5 savages that can 100% trust each other, have each other's back at all times, hands down. You don't have to worry about that. You have to put together, 4 or 5 savages. There's nothing you can't do in this world. Absolutely nothing. So that's more or less what I'm on now, is the big broader picture, and working on scaling up. Our goal is $1 billion fund in the next 5 years.
Let's go. That's awesome. So to all the people that think you can't accomplish great things in your 20s, Morgan is a living example of somebody that's doing it. He is, buying gas stations, has flip funds, has a bunch of different funds going on to buy performing assets or non-performing assets and make them performing. And he has had tremendous growth. I mean, for anybody that's in their 20s and thinks that they can't do something because they're too young, the founding fathers of the United States of America were in their 20s, just so you know. So Morgan just talked about a group of 5 savages, his team, a group of 5 very competent people that work together, trust each other, collaborate, and put a collaborative effort towards something to accomplish it. That's exactly what everything that we have to get something accomplished, that's what you have to do. So Morgan, like what would you do? What advice would you give to somebody that's looking to buy their first property? There's the 20-year-old out there that's looking to buy their first rental property, that's just getting out of college or working their first job or second job. And then there's the 50-year-old that is looking to, get ready for retirement, that maybe wants to buy some properties to retire. So first, can you give advice to that 50-year-old that maybe hasn't saved up for retirement the way they should have and needs to now? And then let's go to the 20-year-old.
Yeah, so if you're later in life, generally you're going to be less risk adverse because you want retirement. So generally, as you get older, you're going to want to pay down debt, so you don't have that not liability necessarily, but that nest egg. So if I was older, I'd be focusing more on cash flow plays, ones that generate substantial more cash that you could retire and get out of the day job. Versus if I was younger, I would more focus on appreciation plays because you have time, right? If you're in your 20s, you have 30 to 50 years ahead of you of just nothing but compound growth, compound. But if you're in your 50s, 60s, you don't have 30, 50 years ahead of you, unfortunately, but that's just the nature of, our life cycles. So if I was in my young 20s, I would focus on, heavy appreciation, but can cash flow, because then you can tap into that equity. And generally if you buy it in the right areas, you're going to have areas where are really good for cash flow. You're going to have areas that are really good for appreciation. Try and get in the middle there. And then as you grow, you can tap into that equity, because generally in really, really good areas with good appreciation, you're going to make more on your net worth growing and those properties appreciating, versus if you just have, lower end properties and just collecting cash flow. So generally, as you're first starting out, I see a lot of people focus solely on cash flow. There's nothing wrong with that by any means. You need cash flow to survive. The business is the lifeblood of any business. But generally, people start out with cash flow, and then as their portfolio grows, they shift towards appreciation, because they start to realize that, yeah, the cash flow is good, but the real money is in appreciation of real estate compounding and raising, going up year over year. I make more money on my net worth from an appreciation aspect than I do money coming in my bank account every year, to put in perspective. So if I was younger, I'd focus appreciation plays. If I was older, I'd focus cash flow plays.
Yeah, I would say probably the same thing. You can be a lot more risky when you're younger, because you have a lot of time to recover, and you have a lot of time to compound things. Now, there's the people that want to become wealthy, want to become financially free, that don't necessarily want to deal with tenants, don't want to deal with the headaches, because we're talking about how great this is, how great buying properties is, but it's also very hard, right? Morgan, I know a story about one of the tenants that you had, a resident that was from an insurance company. Can you tell us a little bit about that? And then we're going to talk about how people can maybe do this if they don't want to manage tenants.
Yeah, so I had this one tenant in one of my properties. I'm not going to name drop them or anything like that. But basically, an insurance company came to me and said, "Hey, our uh, our insured, his house burnt down. We're responsible. We have to build him a new house for the insurance policy payout. In the meantime, we're also responsible. We have to house him to rent somewhere while his house is being built." So long story short, me, I think it's coming, from the insurance company, like guaranteed, let's go. At the time, I did have the insurance company sign on the lease too, just from a extra aspect of risk mitigation. And I did, and I'm extremely thankful I did versus just having the tenant. Nonetheless, everything was going good for like 6 months. The house was rented for $23.50 a month. I didn't have a mortgage on it. I bought it outright when I think I was 23, but didn't have a mortgage on it. It was bringing $23.50 a month. Everything was good for the first 6 months, and then the wife caught the husband cheating, and that one all went downhill. She left. Long story short, he got hooked on hard drugs. From there, he started destroying the house, spray painted a big "fuck you" on the front door, broke windows. Sent me a video of him with a wood chopping axe. Took it to my kitchen cabinets.
So
Um,
he was sending you pictures of a wood chopping axe, and he's like, I'm gonna smash all your cabinets.
he sent me a video of him physically doing it. But
That's
yeah, yeah. And then the other ones with like, oh, I got this chainsaw. I'm gonna chainsaw this house apart. And then that was an interesting eviction, but that was probably been the worst one so far. But I mean, it's kind of one of the ones you have to have the mindset you're going to get a shitty tenant eventually. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. Just being in this game, granted, you can do a lot of stuff to mitigate it, like that. I generally look for 3 times the rent, or 3 times income to rent ratio, and at least a minimum of a 650, 675 credit score that shows on-time payments, because historically, and I go off of data driven decisions, not emotion. Chances are, if they have 100% of their bills paid on their credit report, chances are they care about their credit. And this also leads me to, this gives me leverage, because if they don't pay me and have to evict them, I go and I file a judgment against them, and they have a good credit score. I simply tell them, like, you realize this is going to tank your credit score. It's going to be very, very hard to recover from this. You're not going to be able to get another loan. You're not, like, good luck getting a vehicle loan as well. Like, everything in your adult life is going to be affected from here point future. And if they care about their credit score, they know that and they recognize that. So this gives me leverage as well against them.
yeah. What about the people that don't want to, like, they want to get the benefits of real estate, the depreciation, the cash flow, but they don't necessarily want to handle tenants. They don't want to deal with tenants. They don't want to unclog a toilet when it clogs. Like, what should they do? Are they stuck with the stock market, or like what do they do?
Yeah, they could take a couple different options. I mean, if they grew up, you could hire a property manager. Generally, in single family, you're going to see like 8 to 12% on a property manager. So you could hire a property manager, but then you're stuck managing the property manager. But if you really want to hold, entirely hands-off approach, you could look into funds, REITs, something like we do. I mean, we literally do this for investors who don't want to do that, where they write us checks and we do everything A to Z, the toilets, the nightmares, the evictions, the legal, everything. And they get passive checks in the mail or in their ACH. So there's, you could go in the fund route or REITs, or you could hire a property manager.
So there's a bunch of different options. So maybe if somebody doesn't want to buy the properties themselves and manage them themselves and hire property management and learn all about construction and stuff, they could get some real estate exposure by investing through somebody else, or investing in a fund that does real estate.
Yeah, that, or I mean, when I was first starting out too, I recognize I can offer a lot of hard work and sweat equity and all that. So like I did when I first started out, a lot of my friends, they brought the money and I brought the deal and the hard work and the sweat equity and everything else. So if you have a friend that you can trust and who's done it and has a track record, that's also another option. Partner with them on their deals.
So if you have money and you have a friend that wants to put in the work, you partner with him too.
Yeah. hmm
So it all depends on where you're coming from.
Yeah, it all depends where it's a win-win for everyone. There's a bunch of different ways you can do it.
Everybody in here, if you have any questions or anything like that, if you could please comment. We are going to go into a Q&A if anybody has any questions. So Morgan became a millionaire by 26 years old, or no, a couple years before that, right?
Yeah, I became a millionaire probably like 23, 24.
So became a millionaire by 23. He did it in a couple years, and he doesn't come from money. He doesn't come from that type of background, and he was able to accomplish it in a couple of years. So if Morgan could do it, then most people can do it, right? You can learn the things, you can learn the strategies, you can reprogram your mind to have that financial freedom mentality. Do you have any other advice for somebody that's looking to maybe get started, or like what type of mindset do they have to do this, to do what you did?
If you're starting out, probably in your young 20s, you probably don't have a lot to offer, just being quite frank. You're not developed. You don't have, 50 units yet, 100 units yet, where you don't have resources, you don't have the knowledge, you don't have the project managers or the people, all the team and the key players to get stuff done and moved across the board. So if you're in your young 20s, before you really develop all of that, I would say one thing that you should do, I did it, and I still do it to this day, is work for free. Find someone who's doing what you want to do and what they've done already, and work for free for them. Go, if they're a developer, do whatever you can for free. This is going to give you an education base, and as well as going to develop a great relationship with whoever you're doing this for. So one day, as you learn all this education, you can branch off and do it yourself. Now, say you were helping a developer for 6 months or a year develop projects, and you had absolutely no skill set, nothing to bring to the table. And then you work with that developer for 6 months or a year, and you know exactly A to Z how everything is done. Now you have a resource and a skill set that you can actually bring to the table. Because in general, to get a deal done, you need three things. You need the deal, you need an operator who has an experience, and you need capital. You need those three things to get a deal done. So if you can bring one of the three to the table, you can find the other two to joint venture or partner one. So I did a lot of that first starting out because I didn't have a lot to bring to the table. I did a lot of free work. I still do to this day, even to where I'm at now. You probably think it's crazy, but I work a lot and do a lot of free stuff for people who are way above me as well. And another thing I did a lot was I obsessed over deals and finding deals, because if you can find a really, really, really good deal, deals out there are really hard to find right now. And if you can find a really, really good deal, you can find the capital to fund it. If it's good enough, you'll find the money easy. And if you can find the money easy, you can find an operator that is going to come one as well and hop one and take, sign off on the key partner. So that's what I did a lot, is I worked for free for people who have done what I wanted to do and were actively doing what I wanted to do. And I obsessed over the deal. And then I found the rest of the puzzle pieces and pulled them together.
Yes, that's great advice. Michael just commented how he loves that advice as well. We had another comment here that by Kyle that said, "Thanks for the evidence." I'm not sure what that means, but maybe can you break down like what your portfolio looks like today, and just what your portfolio looks like today?
Yeah, I have about 80, 85 properties between me and between myself, maybe one partner, two other partners, small stuff, a bunch of single family, small multis. And then on the fund structure wise, we have a bunch of stuff. It's income capital, but actively like with that right now, we just bought a 10 unit within that, chasing a 35 as well to to get walked up. We have an 18 unit in Alice, Texas under contract. That'll be closing in about 35, 40 days. Also just locked in another a motel conversion into apartments. That's 20 units in Kansas. I'm not sure if we're putting that in the fund. That may be, me and a couple of my team members just doing it outside that. So we got that one. That'll be closing in about 30, 35 days. And then we also have just locked in another 17 in Iowa, Toledo, Iowa. That'll be in our closing about 30, 35 days. And I have another 8 unit as well. We should have the PSA drafted up on that. That's all stuff with Ingram Capital, the fund. Ingram Capital also owns an 82 unit in Missouri, and some other bigger projects. But I'm not going to take credit for any of that. That was there before I came. But yeah, I guess across the board we're shaking and moving this quarter. And we're set to close about 107 units so far. What's under contract and in the pipeline. Across the board right now, I'd say we're right on the 180 to 200 mark.
So you have 107 units looking to close this quarter, right?
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Michael had a question. Do you have your units all in one area? If so, how do you manage the properties?
No, it's all a team effort. Like, by all means, I'm not doing this all by myself. It's, I have great partners. I have great property managers. I have great project managers and contractors who help me. So by all means, this is not a one-man sport, and I do not recommend that. But stuff I have stuff in Pennsylvania. I have stuff in Florida. I have stuff in Iowa. We'll have stuff in Kansas. We got some other single families that came across today in our flipping fund that will be Missouri as well. So we got stuff across the Midwest, Texas, Florida, PA. I may be missing a few other ones there, but we have property managers. I have property managers for stuff in PA, as well as I have great team members, great partners who help as well. And then stuff across the Midwest. We have property management vertically integrated, so that's all in-house. They're all great at what they do. My partners are great at what they do. It's all just a collaborative, big approach to the bigger picture.
Yeah, and we've talked about this offline before, because when we both were starting out, like, you were buying stuff kind of more scattered. You were buying stuff over here and over here and over here. And I think we recently talked about buying things in different areas. Now, what is because a lot of people are afraid to buy something that's maybe 30 minutes outside of the area or far away from them. What are your thoughts and what are your advice on buying? And a lot of people live in markets where, stuff is $500,000 or $1 million and it doesn't cash flow. So if you live in one of those markets, you're kind of forced to go to a cash flow market and invest out of state or something like that. So what is your advice to people that are afraid to buy a property that isn't right in their immediate proximity? And how did you do it?
Great question. So you have a couple options. If you live, when I first started, I obsessed over everything. Like, I would drive a 2-hour radius to go to and buy a property for myself. I followed the numbers. So in my hometown, that duplex I bought when I was 17, the after repair value and the rents weren't as high. And then I moved into that house in Bloomsburg I bought right out of college. And I quickly realized that stuff in the Northeast PA region around Bloomsburg, after it was fixed up, was worth 3x the amount of stuff in my hometown. And the rents were also about a 3x. But I could get in these properties for the same price. So I quickly realized it makes absolutely no sense for me to invest in my backyard when I have, this deal flow up here where I'm making essentially 3 times the amount of more money for the same amount of work. So I knew every single deal in a 2-hour radius that was on the market around Bloomsburg at that time frame. So a ton of market research. I'm talking 13 hours a day plus. So that's how I did it starting out in my 20s. I would drive a 2-hour radius if the deal worked, and depending on how much meat was on it, I didn't mind doing it. So I chased the money and the returns if it was further. I guess from an aspect, if you don't have that, and you maybe in your New York or something like that, where it's a lot harder to get something to cash flow from a DSCR perspective. I mean, go across the Midwest, look across the Midwest, find an operator out there or a fund or a REIT or someone you know out there and invest that money out there with them, someone you trust to do it. That's another option. Right now, I'm seeing a lot of institutional money move from like Florida and the Sun Belt, and the East Coast are really moving towards the Midwest, Tennessee, Arkansas, those types of areas. So I'm seeing a lot of institutional money move there now. And cash flow is a lot better from that perspective too.
And when you if you're buying a duplex and you're not managing it, how are you finding property managers, or how are you finding somebody to help you?
So generally, if it's something like a duplex or something smaller like that, it's going to be me and one or two other partners. They're active to an extent, some of these, but the ones who we started with together, I teach them how to property manage as well. So they kind of take the reign on that. And I'm here to support and be backseat driver as much as I can. But also from the standpoint, if I do it all, they're not going to learn. They're not going to develop the skills. They're not going to develop the resources, the strategy, and the thinking mindset behind it all. So like I said, I have a lot of great partners who help on that front. And generally anything like 5 units or more, I don't really touch anything unless it's 5, 8 units, 10 units or more, unless there's a big spread. It's just generally not worth my time to do that stuff. But I also hire out property managers as well to help. So I have a 6-unit portfolio and pay, for example, I have a third-party property manager. So it's a matter of meeting with the property managers, interviewing them, going with ones you like, talking to other landlords that they manage for, and make sure that they can handle the workload you're about to put on. I mean, example, if they're only managing 20 units and you come in with a 60-unit property and offload on them, their workload just 3x. The chances are they're going to break and not know how to handle that type of complexity and that problem solving. So I'd say definitely look for ones that have the experience already and have that education, that they have the skill set and the resources already to go about things.
Yes. And how do you find deals? How do you come across the deals that you found? And how are you able to find so many creative deals?
Oh man, they're all off market. It's the secret sauce. A lot of repeat business with a lot of repeat people I've done deals with in the past.
So you've went off market mostly for your deals. You've tried to find them off market, Facebook groups, Zillow for sale by owner, wholesalers, agents. What has been your primary source of these off market deals?
A lot of people who I've done previous business with, honestly. So it was like one wholesaler in particular last year we did 13 deals with. I'm at the point where I try and structure everything as an inbound funnel versus an outbound funnel. I like to attract versus chase. Quite frankly, I don't have the time to chase right now either. So like example, my inbox is, I'm flooded with probably over 75, 100 deals a day that I go through because I set up inbound marketing systems versus outbound. So that's generally, I don't really have to hunt, so to say. I have a lot of people who just send me deals, previous guys who I've closed with too, and as well as new, because they see what I'm doing and they feel that I can actually get the job done and get the actual thing across the finish line. So a lot of people will come to me, and ever other buyers too, just because from the standpoint of they think there's a much higher probability of me actually closing on it than someone else.
So you said that you worked with wholesalers, one wholesaler in particular that you did a lot of business with. Now they're regulating wholesaling basically in Pennsylvania, in our home state. They've passed a law basically regulating it. And they're doing that all over the country. Do you think that your ability to source deals will be impacted by this? What are your thoughts on that?
I don't think it will be, because because the people who are doing this at a very good level and are really efficient at it, they're not going to want to give up that business that they put in the groundwork to. It's I kind of look at it the same way as the government wanting to tax the rich. Let's punish the rich for all the hard work they did and sacrifice they did for the country. The rich are just going to find and go somewhere else. They're going to find, not necessarily a loophole, but they're going to just move somewhere else to be able to keep doing it. Or they're going to pivot, just like I pivoted when PayPal limited my accounts. 75% of my payments are coming through. What did I do? I didn't just shut off shop. I pivoted and I kept it going. And I think wholesalers are going to, continue to pivot and find other avenues to actually keep doing this. The good ones, anyway, who've have a credibility and have put the groundwork in. I think we were actually just talking about this the other day, about the strategies behind that.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's probably a good thing, honestly, because there was a lot of wholesalers that were not ethical, and it's going to get rid of them in theory, because now they're breaking the law. So
I think it's going to be good as well, because, like I said, the ones who are established and already have a good business going, like, they're the ones who are going to stay, and those are the ones you generally want to work with already.
yeah, you have a lot of people entering real estate, giving offers on properties that don't make sense, and then as an actual buyer, like for you, you have to compete with that offer now that doesn't really make sense. So it's going to get rid of those people that are not actually intending to buy the property. We have another question here. What kind of inbound strategies do you use? You said that you have, hundreds of deals that you look at that come through your email. Like how do you get that funnel set up? What do you do to be able to look at all these inbound deals?
Yeah, I mean, so you can set up alerts on stuff. I mean, like Zillow, Redfin, least amount of dollar per square foot. You can filter all of that to send you emails. I mean, there's one. You can set up other alerts through other stuff, establishing, subscribe to brokers' email list, subscribe to wholesalers' emails list. There's a wide variety of things you can do here. Set up a website as well, do stuff with that. But yeah, it's majority of it's all inbound and just establishing a lot of relationships. That's another big thing. This business is heavily driven on relationships. If you have the right relationships and the right resources, you can get a lot done.
What does so you said reaching out to brokers, establishing relationships with wholesalers. I'm sure you could add agents to that list, good agents. Brokers are going to be more for the commercial side of things. Wholesalers are going to be kind of both, but more so residential, and then agents are going to be more so residential. What does like a call to, what does that first step to establish that relationship look like for a wholesaler, broker, agent?
On a deal particular, or just a call out in general?
Yeah, just so maybe I want to talk to a broker and start getting commercial properties sent my way, but I've never talked to a broker. I don't know what to say. I don't even know like how to find a number to call. Where would I start?
That's a good question. So generally, brokers are going to vet you out 100% because they don't want to waste their time, quite frankly. So generally, when I call a broker, I tell them really what I'm looking for. I'm very high level, very detail oriented. And usually, because I'm so detail oriented, they know I'm a player as well. Sometimes, generally, I'd say most of the times they're going to ask you what you currently own as well, to see the likelihood of, are you actually a player or not? Can you get this deal done? So if you're first starting out, that's going to be challenging. I would say instead of using words like me, I, singular, use multiple. Like say, instead of saying I want to buy this, say we want to buy this. Like you have a group of people behind you, or you have partners, or you have a team, or you're a part of a mastermind, or you have. It just sounds like you have a lot more resources to get something done, and the probability of actually getting that done. So if you're first starting out, I would say, use that and leverage someone else who's already done it. Say oh, we're potentially partnering on this. This is my partner. Here's his track record. He's got X, Y, and Z. Leverage other people and other people in your network to help you get there.
Awesome. Yes, I would agree. And I would say when you're first getting started, you're probably going to start in the residential arena. I've watched podcasts, I've watched YouTube videos where they're like, oh yeah, just start with a 100-unit building. Just start trying to take down a 100-unit building. I would not give that piece of advice. It is who, not how, but you're not going to know what's going on if your first deal into real estate is 100 units. Like, if you buy a duplex, that's a great way to get started, to see if you want to be a landlord, to see how tenants are, to see, basically, like, you learn everything. You learn that people are flaky, you learn all that type of stuff. So I would start in the residential market, and there's also more market inefficiencies there. One of the great things about real estate is you have market inefficiencies. So with the stock market, there's thousands of people watching the stock market every single day, looking at a stock, pricing the stock correctly. The piece of real estate, I could be the only person that's in contact with that seller, and there could be a lot more market inefficiency there, a lot more space to provide value. And that's even more so in the residential market. So I always suggest that people should get started in the residential market. And Michael has another question before we wrap up here. We're at our hour mark, so I don't want to hold you any longer, Morgan. But Michael has a question. Do you place all of your deals into an LLC and then have an overall LLC that manages the other LLCs?
Each one's a little different. Depends how many assets are in what. Generally, I don't think you really have to. Now, this is me personally. I'm not a CPA. I'm not an attorney. Please recommend and do not take this as advice. Consult with one prior. But generally, if this portfolio is like less than $1 million, I'm not really generally too worried about the asset protection. Insurance and an umbrella policy will take care of that. But for the bigger stuff, I have an active LLC where the transaction's transactional LLC, and then from that LLC, another LLC is the holding LLC, where the entity or the property entity, and then from that LLC it's the holding LLC. So it's spaced out about two from the day-to-day operations to where the assets are actually held.
So getting started, like having LLCs, every property under an LLC wasn't that big of a priority because you wanted to rely on your insurance first, because insurance is your first line of protection, right? So putting them in an LLC didn't really matter to you.
Yeah. I wouldn't worry about that, too much starting out. Don't worry. Don't get too caught up in that until, I would say probably, I didn't personally until probably about 3 to 5 million worth of assets.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Morgan, for your time today, and thank you for giving us advice and sharing with us today. Is there anything that you want to leave the listeners with? One last piece of advice or one last ask, maybe a way that people, one, can get in contact with you, and then maybe a good word of advice to close out here.
Yeah, I would say if anyone has any questions or anything, I'm a pretty open book. I love helping people. I'm a big advocate of good karma, very big advocate of good karma. So if anyone has any questions or is maybe stuck somewhere along their journey, or maybe there's a younger Morgan out there tripping and scraping his elbows and is just dragging his feet, please reach out to me. I would love to help anyone that I can along their journey. And the biggest advice I could really give is stay consistent, because that's the difference between the people who win and the people who lose, and the people who are extremely successful are the ones. There's really one trait: consistency, not giving up no matter what. So staying consistent is definitely huge, very, very, very big. You have to be consistent, because also motivation comes and it goes. We all know that, but you have to have the willpower to stay consistent.
Awesome. Thank you, Morgan. Thank you, everybody, all the audience members that participated. When we have questions, it really helps to pull more out of our guests. So feel free to ask questions throughout the whole show for the next one. And thank you so much, Morgan. Everybody got a lot out of this, and have a great day. I appreciate you joining us today.
Hey, thanks for having me. I'll talk to you soon.
All right, we'll see you. Thank you.
See ya.
Bye, everybody. Thank you so much for joining today. If you want to get a hold of Morgan, you can find him at ehrenzellercapital.com. If you want to learn more about real estate, if you need a system to manage leads, or if you want to learn how to do deals off market or invest off market, we have a community that we're starting, offmarketmentor.com. This will be a community where basically people that invest in things off market, whether that's a business off market or a piece of real estate off market. This community is going to be for that. There's going to be market research. There's going to be tools like calculators to be able to determine the value of an asset. There's going to be contracts, all the stuff that we use. And then there's also tools. And so check that out if you're looking to learn more. And thank you, everybody, for listening and joining with us today. Again, thanks for all the audience members that participated. We definitely want more participation so that we can ask our guests, questions and get the most out of them. So thank you for your time and have a great weekend, everybody. I will see you later and have a good one.